Aristotle eloquently reminds us that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Kindness is the cornerstone of educating others, and we're all educators, whether we recognize this or not. Kindness can play a huge part in achieving our intended outcomes. For instance, we potty train our children, and we don't do this with a mean spirit. We do this with patience and understanding. We teach our dogs new tricks by showering them with praise. We welcome a new colleague into the workplace, and we show them the ropes, and we put our best foot forward. And our friends and our families learn about their own self-worth by the ways in which we interact with them. When we have the opportunity to show kindness to someone, we're showing them how the world can actually work. And when someone feels comfortable around us, when they feel safe and relaxed in our presence, as Aristotle reminds us, this is when learning and real growth can take place. Now, I taught college courses, English classes in academic writing and research for a decade. I design curriculum for online classes, and I homeschool my children. My hunch is that when you hear me say, I taught college classes for a decade, or I design curriculum for online classes, that you think something much differently about me than when you hear me say, I homeschool my children. Your thoughts might not have been always filled with kindness and understanding. Might have been a little judgy, and that's okay, because I want to make something clear to you so you can relieve yourself of that burden and set yourselves free, because I don't homeschool my children for your sake. So whether or not I'm standing in front of my dining room table, I'm in my bathrobe in front of my kids, or I'm standing in a classroom in front of a group of college students, I begin with the belief that everyone deserves kindness, compassion, empathy, and understanding, because these qualities, these inclusive qualities, break down barriers and they enable us, each one of us, no matter what side of the educational equation we're on, to begin to believe in our given potential. In the first weeks of every college class that I taught, I would run exercises so that students could take an inventory of how they best retained and processed information, so they could become aware of their personal learning styles. Our learning styles influence the way we behave. They guide the way we think. They change the way we internally represent our experiences, the way that we recall information. They even influence the words that we choose. Research shows that each learning style uses a different part of the brain. So when you're able to engage that part of your brain, you can manage the information that comes in successfully and well. Showing someone about their personal learning style is actually an act of kindness, because you're giving someone a glimpse into who they really are. And when you show someone who they are and what they are capable of, this is one of the most formidable acts of educating another human being. Now, I once had a student named Shay. Shay's husband had died of a heroin overdose the year before. She had 5 children. She was working 3 separate jobs and attending classes 2 nights a week. She was bright. Wow, she was exhausted. And I felt so much compassion for Shay. There was a part of me that wanted to just do whatever I could to move her along, just as an act of kindness, but instead I chose to show her something about herself. Shay said to me, I love to read, I'm a visual learner. But after doing this inventory, she realized that she was actually a tactile learner. She learned best by doing. She implemented those strategies into her study habits. She not only passed my class, she graduated. She became a nurse. Several years later, she came to find me at the college, dressed in her nurse's uniform, and her life was massively different. She was working 1 job. 2 of her children had graduated from high school. 1 was in college, and the other was in the military. And remembering that exercise as a turning point in her education, she wanted to come and say thank you. And I said, Shay, you're welcome, but you really need to thank yourself. I didn't show up to your classes. I didn't write your papers. I didn't take your exams. I didn't do any of that work for you. You did that for yourself. I just taught you a little something, and you took advantage of it. You paid attention to it. I just did it to be nice. She said to me, "Mrs. Randall, you are nice, but that's not what I came here tonight to tell you. I came here to tell you tonight that I don't ever want you to forget that compassion has no limits and kindness has no enemies." On a Tuesday afternoon when my kids and I are walking through the grocery store, often someone will come up to us and say, "Shouldn't those kids be in school today?" And I have to tell you, my go-to line is, actually we're doing a little subject I like to call consumer math. That response isn't always met with pleasantries. But I want my kids to know what kindness looks like and what kindness sounds like when I'm able to turn around and say, "Thank you so much for telling me how you feel. I really, truly hope you have a wonderful day." We have two goals. Two educational goals in the Friday Randall Homeschool of Delaware. One is self-management, and the other one is kindness, always. My husband and I get asked questions all of the time about homeschooling, and some of them are logistical. How do you do that anyway? Some of them are statements or assumptions about a belief that they have. "Oh, I don't think I could do that with my kids." And some of them are really insightful, and someone will ask, "What made you decide to homeschool your kids? What motivated you?" Or, "Are you worried that maybe you're not preparing them to go out into the world?" I can tell you that my children are compassionate and kind. They're smart, they're inquisitive, they're curious, they're funny, they're great to be around. We aren't preparing them to go out into the world. We are preparing them to change it. I'd like to end with this story. My mother lived with us for the last 3 years of her life, and she had Alzheimer's disease. It was difficult to watch her illness progress, but I was fortunate enough to watch my kids embrace her and embrace her disease. She would run math drills and do reading exercises with them until she couldn't remember the answers anymore. My kids learned math and reading skills anyway, but they also learned patience and respect. She would stand up with us in the morning and she'd do the Pledge of Allegiance with us, and she would recall the same stories over and over again about how her and my father traveled the world through a career in the United States Air Force. And the day may have started late. We may have heard the same story more than once. But my kids learned about patriotism, commitment, and honor. She would sneak them treats at the table when she thought I wasn't looking. And they learned about not taking things so seriously and the importance of having a good laugh. We all learned about being flexible and really staying present with someone. And we learned that while an illness can claim the life of someone that we love, ultimately love is the thing that remains, and compassion for another human being can make all the difference in their quality of life. A little burst of kindness can put a spark of sunshine into someone else's day. Teaching someone kindness and compassion, showing empathy for someone else, can put a colossal burst of sunshine into someone else's life. Approaching education with the belief that compassion has no limits and kindness has no enemies has enabled my family and I to learn a lot from each other. We've learned how to rely on each other. We've learned how to care for each other so that we can take that out into the world. And from the value of and importance of inclusion and responsiveness, the importance of dance party breaks, semi-regular pajama days, we are learning how to change the world, not by our opinions, but by our example, one act of kindness at a time.